the reason why I started boxing was because I was one of your cliche school wimps.
Yeah.
I'd go to school. In the comprehensive school that I was at, there was about 1,500 kids, and there was literally about three others that weren't white. Back then, it was completely different to what it is these days.
Yeah.
I had it tough because of that, but
Yeah.
also the fact that I was, believe it or not, the smallest. Things haven't changed today. And, my parents, at that stage, my dad didn't have a job, so you're on dinner tickets and you're wearing hand-me-down sort of clothes, trousers that are too short for you, so you're getting grief for that.
Mm.
So yeah, I got it from all angles as far as school's concerned, but then also I'd go home and I had a very bad childhood at home as well with the relationship I had with my mother. So I got to a point in life, I wanted to box at 10. I remember I used to watch Mike Tyson. I could get up and sneak up in the middle of the night and watch Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
Sugar Ray Leonard when he boxed Marvin Hagler, just mesmerized me. So I wanted to box from 10 years old, but my mother had never allowed me to. I got to 15, and one day at school, I got locked up in a metalwork cupboard, a little thin sheet sort of metalwork cupboard, open back with just bars at the back. And I remember they were throwing paper towels through the back at my feet and thinking, what's going off? Then the next minute, the paper towels are on fire. And so I got fire at my feet and I'm in a little cupboard. And I basically just lost it. And it was that point when I thought, at this point, I'm 15 years old. It's all right getting bullied and being intimidated and being scared of everything when you're 15. But what happens when you grow up, when you get older? And at that time, you never think about having daughters. Or I didn't. I always thought, I'll have a son. And so my mind was, what happens if I'm walking down the street with my boy and somebody that bullies me is there and I'm intimidated, and how can I teach my kid not to be the same way? So I've got to take a stand. I remember years back, I met Johnny Nelson when Johnny Nelson was coming through. I think he might have been British champion, or he was about to fight for a British title for the first time. He used to do these, these things that the council put on in parks. I don't know if they still do them now, but people go around in these trucks, put up sports activities for kids in summer holidays. And I met Johnny Nelson when he was doing one of those. And it always stuck in my mind. He always said to me, come down to Brendan Ingles gym, come down to Brendan Ingles gym. So I thought, okay, I'm going to look for Brendan Ingles gym. So I did. And that's why I started boxing. And the things that I learned in that boxing gym and the things that I learned from what I went through as a child do have a bearing on how I bring my fighters through, do have a bearing on how I can understand the mental demons and the stresses and pressures that fighters have. All different personalities, not everybody's born to be the most confident person in the world. So I can relate to the guys that don't have the confidence, that are scared of everything, that do have issues outside of the boxing gym. And I suppose that helps with how I communicate with them, I think.
Really interesting. So, your work then must be on the mental side as well as the physical side then.
Massively.
Yeah. Can you tell us how that works? Like how that might practically work in sort of sessions and things when you're working with people?
So first of all, I mean, boxing is a very, very demanding sport. Physically, it's very demanding. So just on that alone, the physical punishment that you take, feeling tired when you wake up, just on things like that alone, that puts a lot of pressure mentally, because you wake up in the morning, you feel the aches from yesterday's sparring session, or you feel the aches from yesterday's weight training session. You've got to go and spar now, and you just don't feel physically like, I can't do it. You're trying to make weight, so you're depleting your calories. So that takes an element of toughness straight away, and it takes it takes it takes a capacity for you to be able to adjust your mindset from thinking, I can't do this, I'm not feeling this today, to switching on, okay, I've got to do this.
Yeah.
I've got to go and perform. I've got to go and do this session. So with some people, they can flick that switch and they come in, but I can read a fighter when he walks through the door.
Right.
What kind of mood he's in. I know my fighter's inside out. What kind of mood he's in. Does he look low on energy? So you have to adjust your session to how they're feeling, because it's not, people talk about beasting fighters and running them into the ground. You can't do that, because not only physically are you liable to cause injuries and things like that, but mentally you're going to drain them. And you take away you add pressure to how they're feeling, you add the doubts to how they're feeling, and that can spiral into a fighter that not only is he low on confidence to start off with, but you can have a fighter that is confident, that all of a sudden you start taking the edge away from him and you start depleting them mentally, and you're eroding that confidence away from them what they had, which makes the job so much harder anyway.
Yeah. See, how important is it to within that, and I suppose this might apply to you when you were younger as well, but like just having the purpose behind it. So it's not just sort of, getting physically strong and being that guy who can sort of handle himself. It's having that purpose, that great purpose that make sure that you do get up in the morning, you do those things. Is that sort of like a thread that you need? And is that purpose that you carry like a title or a certain achievement? Like, how does that fit into what you do?
So I always wanted to be the best.
Yeah.
That was it. It's never been about and the way that I feel, and I speak to my fighters, and funny enough, we had a chat this morning about things, and I always say to them, if you're in boxing or in, so I talk to my little boy about, because he's mad on his football, and I talk to my little boy about it the same sort of manner. If you're in a sport and it requires sacrifice, whatever it is, boxing, football, it requires sacrifice. People think that footballers will get it easy. They've had to put a lot of work into what they do. And it's the same as any sport, anything. If it's somebody playing snooker that's at the top, he's put thousands of hours into his sport, into what he needs to do. And this is what I say is, if you're in it just for money, and it's because you want to drive a nice car, it's because you want to wear a nice watch. If it's because of that, if that's your motivation factor, that's where, when you've gone from being skint to being comfortable, that's when the foot just comes a little bit off that pedal. Now, when you go from being skint to where you're then more than comfortable and you're rocking around in your nice big car, you're living in a nice big house, and you don't have to worry about the bills, that's when you see people tail off. They show this massive potential where you think they can be great, but they end up just being very good. Now, being very good is an outstanding achievement, but in boxing or in football, there are countless fighters, there are countless footballers or whatever that are very good, but they're not the best. So I always find that when I speak to people that have hit the pinnacle, that have become world champion, that have become top Premiership players, that have become whatever they are in the sport or in whatever field. Now, it doesn't have to be sport. It can be business. It can be anything. When I speak to people that are at the top end that have been so successful, their motivation isn't money. Their motivation is to be the best. Call it ego, call it whatever you want. They want to be the best. Because what happens then when you want to be the best, your money for fight starts coming in, you start getting comfortable, you're driving a nice car, cool. But that motivation to get up in the morning and to give it absolutely everything, to keep on your diet, to keep putting your strength and conditioning sessions going in, keep giving 100% every single day to get the best out of yourself every single day, that desire is still there. It's always there because you want to be the best. And that's a massive advantage for these people that are at the top of the field, whatever it is. Because it's like your people like, even down to people like Elon Musk and people like that,
Yeah.
worth billions and whatever. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to worry about money. He's not doing it for money, but he's constantly pushing himself because he wants to be the best. He wants to be the best that he can be. It's not even about being better than the next man. Some people thrive off of that.
Yeah.
But some people just want to push themselves to see how far they can get, see how good they can get at something. And they're the ones that I feel that are always motivated, that will always battle through whatever comes at them. You know, and this is why I say, you know, a lot of British fighters, we win a world title, and the fame, because we're a little island, the fame is there. You know, you get endorsements, you get the fame. You walk in that street, people saying who you are, knowing who you are, and everything. Drive your nice car, live in your nice house. They take the foot off the pedal, and they're just another world champion. But then I grew up where you've got people like Roy Jones, Bernard Hopkins, Oscar De La Hoya, Mayweather, Trinidad, staying at the top of the tree for a decade.
Yeah.
You know how hard it is to stay at the top for a decade?
Yeah.
That is serious, because these guys are making millions a fight. Millions. I look at Ronaldo. My little boy's a huge fan of Ronaldo. Not because of what he does on the pitch necessarily, but because of what he does off the pitch and his work ethic. He looks up at Ronaldo as his hero because of what he does off the pitch. Yeah. He's been at the top. Messi's been at the top. It's been those two for years. But they keep working hard. They've got everything you could possibly want. Everything you could possibly want. I couldn't tell you what they haven't got, what anybody else has got. But they keep pushing themselves. Each year, each session, each match, they keep pushing themselves. That's a different mentality. That's a different mentality. And sometimes it's not just about the guy that's naturally talented. It's not about the kid that you look in the gym and you see a bunch of kids and you see this kid that stands out. And you think, oh, he's good. There might be a little kid in the corner of the gym that nobody notices right now, but he keeps going and going and going. He's got that mentality to look at that guy over there and say, not be jealous. It's a different mentality, because I've seen it all ends where people are jealous, and you never climb that ladder to the pinnacle by using jealousy as a fuel. But you can look at somebody and say, I want that. I want what he's got.
Yeah.
I'm going to work hard enough to get what he's got. And I'm going to push myself to the absolute max so I get what he's got. And that's, for me, is the difference between the people that are extremely successful for a long period of time and people that are successful, but then they fall off. We see it a lot in football. We see these potential superstar kids. Yeah. How many kids have we seen? We say, oh, he's going to be unbelievable. He's going to be one of the world's best players at 18, 19, 20 when they break on the scene. But that by the time 25, they're just a good footballer, great, very good footballer. But they're not the best. They haven't fulfilled that potential. Again, that for me is a lot to do with the financial trappings that they get and where they just feel comfortable. So the driving force behind them wasn't necessarily to be the best. It was because I like football or I like boxing and I've achieved a good standard. That's it. But if you want to be the best, you have to have that extra. It can't be about money. It has to be about that desire to be the best.
Yeah. Is that then something that you try to spot in people, or is it something that you can sort of train into someone?
It's not about training into somebody. It's about educating people, and especially if you're younger, and it's about motivating people. We all set out. We all have dreams, but what happens is we'd like to chase the dreams, but sometimes the dreams are a little bit difficult, and you can't see how are you going to get there. How am I going to get there? Do you know what? This is safe. This is a 9-to-5 job. I'm good at this. I'm comfortable. Yeah, I'd love to do this, but I'm going to do this instead because I know I can do it. Yeah. It's taking the risk. It's trusting yourself, basically. It's backing yourself, and it's having that mentality where you chase hard the dream. You don't dream about it. You chase the dream. You go for it. You actually put things into place. But it's like what I try and say to my little boy. And the same as I said to Jordan and Hope in the gym, they're young fighters in the gym that are doing really, really well, extremely talented, extremely successful. They've got the dreams of becoming world champions, becoming multiple world champions. But it's not just going to be there and it's unattainable. Every single step that you take, every single session that you have, give it 100% because you can't get it back. And if you, for instance, if you turn up at the gym, go through the motions, that session is gone. It's gone. So whatever amount of sessions you have in your career, you will never be as good as what you would have been if that session you'd have given 100%.
Right.
Because each one chips away at what your potential is. If your potential's there and you give 100% on every session, then you can fulfill your potential. If your potential's there and you give 90% on every session, there's still a gap. What you could have been better. Even if you're multiple world champion, even if you're the greatest footballer that ever lived, if there are sessions where you only gave it 80, 90%, there's a little bit of gap, which means that you could have actually been better. And there are certain individuals that take that on board and that understand it and buy into it and like that, and it drives them, it fuels them, and so they live as that, you know. And in a boxing sense, my two guys, Jordan Gill and Hopi Price, they live it, they breathe it. They've got the same mentality as me with that, you know. At first with Jordan, when Jordan came to me, he wasn't the most confident of kids, you know. He'd not had outside his family, he'd not had people believing in him and backing him and saying, you know what, you could do this. And so it took time for him to start believing himself. With Hope, he's different. He's a very successful young kid, so he's got that confidence, but he's getting him to understand just how far you can go. Even people that are confident don't actually believe how far they can go. And even how I work with my little boy, you know, in anything, he's 9 years old. He's got a pure winner's mentality, and that's his schoolwork, that's football, that's whatever. If we're training together, he has to try and beat me everything, you know, because he wants to give it 100%. He wants to get the best out of himself on every single situation. And that's something that it's only by spending time with people and by talking to people that it kind of rubs off. And there's a reason why people, you know, we say that if you want to be successful, try and rub shoulders with people that are successful, because they've all got a familiar blueprint, whether it's F1, whether it's football, whether it's business. Like I said, I listen to podcasts of successful people in all sorts of business. Even I listened to one the other day with this kid, never heard of him before, and he's got 30 million followers on his TikTok and he's a social media superstar. But just listening to him talk, an 18-year-old kid, listening to him talk, it ties in with your athletes, with your businessmen, it's the work ethic, it's the drive, it's the never being satisfied with what you got and wanting to push yourself that gets the best out of yourself.
Amazing. In terms of sort of the lows then, and dealing with, because in the process of this, obviously there's going to be difficulties for everyone. Like how does that work then, in dealing with someone who's, you know, been through a defeat and experienced failure and had that sort of ambition pricked slightly or taken a few blows? Like how do you sort of like handle that kind of situation?
That's where it counts. Listen, anybody can carry on going when you keep winning, can carry on going when you find something easy, right? Anyone can do that. But it takes something a little bit deeper. It takes something a little bit stronger, a little bit more determined to come back from the losses, to come back from the defeats and the pressures of what other people say. Oh, he's not good, he's lost, he's not good, he's this, he's that. You know, I lost my first 8 amateur fights. So I've come from being a kid that's getting bullied and getting ridiculed at school to then you start boxing and you keep losing. And it got to a point where I would go into just before I'm about to get my gloves on in the amateurs, I'd go into the toilets, go in the cubicle. I'm not religious, but I just go, please God, let me just win this fight. I just want to know what it feels like to win this one fight.
Mm.
And then I go out and I get beat again. And then you have that where you just want to cry. Sometimes I did cry. You just want to cry, and you feel completely defeated, completely deflated, and you feel as though you're never going to do it. But there's a little fire inside me that if I'd made it to, because I ate bad and I ate tough as a kid, and I always thought that if I could make it through that, I can make it to anything. I'll get there. I will have the life that I wanted. I chased this life that I've got so hard because I nearly gave up on it as a kid. Right. And so because I chased it, because I didn't give up on it, I owed myself to keep chasing. And it started with that. I just wanted to win that fight. I wanted to know what it felt like to win a fight. And when it came, I can still remember it today. I can still remember it. You know, I was 17 years old, and I still remember. I'm 45 now. I still remember that exact feeling. I stopped the kid in a minute and a half, and I remember that exact feeling when I came back to my corner, absolutely beaming, proud, had that feeling. Now, I've had a fighter called Jordan Gill, very, very talented kid, very, very good. All of a sudden, he gets the big build-up from Sky. From having nothing, he breaks through, has the big build-up, headlines in his hometown. Great. Then after that, fights and gets beat. Now, he made the mistake because he was ill, and he should have told me he was ill, and I'd have pulled him out. But again, mentality, inexperience, the pressure of having sold £10,000 worth of tickets, boxing at Nottingham Ice Arena, live on Sky Sports, he didn't feel strong enough, or that he could say, I can't fight. So he chose to go ahead thinking, I'll try and get through it and I'll be all right. But he had nothing in him. So I pulled him out of the fight. His confidence absolutely shattered to bits. The whole of social media writing him off for the next 2 years, slagging him off and saying that he's this, he's never going to do anything. And it took a year of bringing him round, talking him through. Then he got ill. He had an illness that we thought would mean that he'd never box again. And then lockdown happened, and something switched in his mentality. I don't know if it was the weight off his shoulders because he got told that, you know, if this illness was a possibility that he couldn't box again, and then it became where he was all right. He got his test back and he was fine. So maybe it's that, you know, that second shot where you think, I've got this opportunity now. It just seemed that the weight off his shoulders came on. Like literally, physically, you see a difference in him. That when he used to come into the gym to where he comes into the gym now. And then he's just spiked this improvement. But going into his first fight, the pressure, the stress, because he can't afford to lose again. He's still got the doubts about himself because of the loss. He wins that fight, big fight, but then the second fight was a very up at world level. It was a very difficult fight, tough fight against the same sort of style fighter as the guy that beat him. The guy's from the same gym that the guy that beat him is. A lot of similarities, but this guy boxes at a higher level, he boxes at world level, a better fighter. So everybody's thinking he's going to get done again here. And he didn't. He boxed brilliant, performed great, and now you see his confidence is there. But it took 2 years to get him back.
Right. Yeah.
And this is where it is. People have to understand that the knocks and the defeats, the setbacks, the upsets, the heartbreaks, if you can bring yourself through the other side, it adds to you. It's almost like bolt-ons. So we have this certain amount of confidence, but when you go through the difficulties, if you can get through them, that adds as armory to you. Because you've got, if anything like that happens again, you've got a point of reference to go through it. You've gone through it, and you know you can come out the other side.
Yeah.
You know, and in other terms as well, because you've gone through difficulties, you get more confidence in yourself. I think this is why we talk about, as we get older, we get more comfortable in ourselves, because of all the crap we've gone throughout life. You
Yeah.
get to a point where you kind of like get more and more comfortable because you kind of handled all different scenarios. But whereas at the time when you've not handled these scenarios and you're going through them, you're stressing about them, you're panicking about them, it knocks your confidence back. You think you can't cope with things. You know, we blow things up a lot worse than what they are if you don't look at things rationally. You know, and again, it's about having somebody that can talk to you and explain to you. It's why it's so important when, you know, I speak to people all the time that are going through really bad times, and you know, I get people messaging me, direct messaging me on my Instagrams and sort of stuff like that are going through seriously bad times, especially during this lockdown and things like that. People losing their jobs and things like that, and it always amazes me because I think to myself, well, surely there's somebody you can speak to, but it's not about having somebody that you can speak to. Because I'm sure if we all sat, there's somebody that you could speak to, but it's about having somebody you're comfortable speaking to.
Yeah.
That you can open yourself up to and that you can get another perspective on. Because it's very important, because once you speak something, you speak your issues, you speak your problems, you speak your worries and your doubts, you know, whether it's sport, life, just living, supporting your family, everything. Everybody's got doubts, but we bottle them in. We try and figure it out. But once we speak about it, you get another perspective.
Yeah.
And if it's the right person you're speaking to, it's quite a rational perspective. And just when you get into that situation where you feel like you're losing control mentally, it doesn't have to be anything as extreme as life-threatening. It can be sport, it can be, you know, your job, but you start doubting yourself, you don't think you can do it. But once you start thinking about things rationally, you'll find that it's not as bad as what you think. You know, and you'll find that there is a path out of there. It's just that you, from your perspective, you might not see the path out of there. You know, it's like when you're driving a car in an area you don't know of, you only see that road in front of you, and you're only going to see the signs that are on that road to get you out of it. And you might not, you ain't got a clue where you were. But if you turn your sat nav so it pans out a little bit, and you see all these other roads that are coming off that road that will take you to it, there's different options. Yeah. It's just a different viewpoint. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And I think one of the most crucial things in that surely is being there for someone in the long term, because these things, there's no like easy fix, is there? And I think that applies to any sort of situation that someone's in, and perhaps people sometimes just want to have one little chat about what's going wrong, and that's that done. But it's not really the way it works, is it, for people?
No, don't listen. The smaller problems we can fix in just a quick chat. You know, we can do that. You know, your daughter's having some problems with one of her mates. You can just have a little chat, and it's calmed and it's sorted. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
But with real problems, with problems that build up, it's not a quick fix. But it's like I had a chat with my little boy about this, because I want my kids to mentally be able to handle the pressures of life.
Yeah.
Whether that's sport or it's exams or it's school, whatever, just life. And I watched this thing on Roman Kemp did, and it quite home to me about that. And I just thought, you know what? I've got my little boy is like a little man. You can sit there and talk to him about anything. He's like a little man. He's so forward for his age. But I just want him to just be reassured and just to understand, you know, this. I don't want him ever thinking that you have to bottle things up. And the way that I explained to him about things it's about stress, about things that worry you.
Yeah.
Is I got a glass, and I put the tap. I says, "Come here." I says, "What?" I says, "I want to talk to you about this." And it's the easiest way to explain to a kid, and he got it straight away. I poured some water into the glass, probably about that much out of the glass in water. I says, "This glass is your brain. and the water is stress. Things that just generally piss you off and just get on your nerves. I says, there's that much stress. I says, that much clear thought in your brain. Right. I empty it out. See how quick that water comes out? I went, yeah. I went, right. So now watch. So I filled it up to half. So it's half and half. I said, so your brain's full of half of problems. I said, you've all these problems here. I said, they're building up. They've got to halfway. So you got half clear, half in, right? So I poured it out. This is what's happened to water there. You see, it took a bit longer to come out. I went, right. I said, that's your brain being half full. Then I filled it just so it comes right to the top. I says, now, do you see you've got no space for clear thoughts and for happy thoughts? I says, your brain's just filled with stress, with problems. So I poured it out. It took ages, obviously. And he said, it takes a lot longer for it to come out. I went, exactly. I said, so if you let all these problems fester in your brain and you don't speak to somebody and you don't let somebody know, I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with that. I said, it can be anything about school, it can be a kid at school, it can be problems at home, it can be football, it can be anything. I said, but if you keep letting them add, I said, then it fills. I said, you've got no space for the happy thoughts, got no space for clear thinking. I said, so your brain's been taken over by all this. Right. I said, and then when you try and work through them, it takes forever for it to work through, for your brain to work through, because there's that many problems there.
Yeah.
I says, now watch. So it's full. I just pulled the tap, so it's overflowing. I says, what's happening here? It says, water's just falling. It says, no room, water's overflowing. I went, that's your brain. I says, you've come to a top there. You've still not spoke. I says, this here now is more problems. I says, this is when people can't handle it anymore. Yeah. And that's when people then check out because they've allowed it. And I says, remember, I went back to the beginning, poured that much water. I says, this is a problem. I said, get rid of it. Speak it. It's gone. It's emptied your head out clear.
Yeah.
And that was and he got it just like that. He understood it. I think it's so important for people to understand that you cannot, I know it's a long-winded way of explaining, but it's just quite a simple way when you think about it, of how important it is that when we have problems, when we have things that worry us, when we have things that give us stress, don't just bottle them up. Oh, I'll be right. Because that's what we do. And then what happens is, in his quiet moments, we're thinking about it. And the more problems that we have to think about, the less chance we've got of finding a way out of it. And that's it's very important that people understand that there is no stigma to talking about your problems. It don't mean that you're weak. It don't mean that people can be horrible, and people like to think that everybody should be able to figure out their problems. Not at all. It's perfectly human. Everybody has doubts. I don't care who you are. I don't care who you are. Everybody has doubts.
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting, especially at the moment. There's so much sort of discussion about sort of boys' behaviour in schools and all this stuff in the news. But I mean, you're talking about sort of real time spent and emotional investment spent in educating boys rather than kind of leaving them alone to sort of get on with it, which seems to have been quite common in the past, I think.
You see, I've got a bit of an issue with schools where half of the lessons, and I'm not joking, half the lessons that they're doing, you don't use as an adult. There's a lot of stuff at school where it's like, is school and the stuff that they do, is it a little bit outdated for today's world? I think so. I think little things like, I believe as kids should be taught as part of the maths curriculum, they should be taught how to deal with money. I think they should understand about savings, understand about money, and so when they earn money, they don't blow it. If you're not educated, how do you what do you know about it? You just think easy come, easy go. If you're not educated, not everybody has a parent that is good with money or is gonna have that communication skill set to be able to explain to the kid how to look after the money. Not everybody's going to be like that, And I think as far as mental health, and you can stick your head in sand as much as you want and say, oh, they should toughen up, oh, they should be able to handle. Oh, no, it's a real issue. It's a real issue. And it's a real issue because the world today is different to how it was when I was a kid. And when I was a kid, it was different to how it was when my parents were kids. With as the evolution of the world comes more and more different problems. So we're, as parents, we're the first generation that has to deal with, for our kids, social media and the problems that brings you. Yeah. Is there anything in schools that teaches kids about social media and how to solve that? I know that for my kids, you know, I've had to explain to my kids about what is out there, how things are. The abuse that I get, I'm quite open with it for my kids. So when they get it themselves, it's not going to affect them as much because they see dad gets it. It's part of it. It's not nice. This is how you deal with it. And this is how you don't let it just fester you. You don't just sit on your phone scrolling through, looking to see all those bad comments. I think it's communication. Whatever is the difficult topics, people don't like to speak about, especially the kids. They don't want to, they don't want to speak about it, and they kind of they want to shelter them from it. Yeah. But by sheltering them from it, it's leaving them open to being hurt by it. Yeah. And so I do think schools need to start doing things like that, because, like I said, not everybody's got I didn't have that relationship with my parents. My dad never spoke, and me and my mum forget about it. So I didn't have that. Everything I learned was through like my life experiences. So I just think that if I'd have had somebody at school where I spend 6.5 hours or whatever it is a day, bringing them things into conversation, then I'd have gone through school a lot happier and with just, it wouldn't have stopped the kids from what they're doing. It wouldn't have stopped my mum from doing it. But what it would have done was help me cope with it better. And I think that's what it is. It's about teaching kids how to cope with problems. They're always going to have problems. You can't make it into a Disney film and think that everything is just going to work itself out beautifully, because it doesn't. But if you can teach kids how to cope with problems, like I said, it can be money issues, it can be whatever, but you've got to teach kids how to cope with problems, how to manage the thought processes, and how to remain clear thinking. Because once you cloud your brain, it's very, very hard. It's very hard to see a way out. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Just final couple of things. I could talk to you for hours, but final couple of things. What have you sort of learned from the last year, which might be work or it might be life, but what have you sort of taken away as hopefully things are relaxing a little bit, kind of get back to normal? Is there anything that you're going to any lessons that you're going to take with you from this last year forward?
I'll be honest with you. When I remember when we were about to go into lockdown, I sat my family down and I said, listen, this is what's going to happen. We're not going to be allowed to do anything. We're not going to be able to do this. I've got one kid at that point. He's 8 and my daughter's 15. And at that point, and they've got a good social life. My little boy plays football 5 days a week. My daughter's out with her friends all the time, as 15-year-old girls are. She goes to a studio where she does the music and things like that. Constantly busy. Now, the first thing I said to him is, listen, all this is done. Do not sit there as time goes by. After the first week or two, you'll be all right. I said, but this is going to drag on. I said, when it does, do not sit there thinking, I wish I could do this. I wish I could see my mate. You can't do it, so forget it. You can't do it. Don't wish for things that you can't do, you can't have. Just let's start building a routine so we're busy for each day. In our bubble, in our life, in our house. So we did. So I didn't allow the kids to just stay in bed till 11, 12 o'clock, get into that lazy sort of routine. No, get up, do this, get your schoolwork done straight away, this. And we had a routine. And before you knew it, every single day it'd be 7 p.m. And we'd be like, where's the day gone? Because I'm bad, because I'm never in the house. So I'm in my head, my own thoughts, I'm thinking, I'm going to struggle. I'm going to really struggle. But that's why I was kind of like, right, okay, we need to set a plan. I was doing Zooms with my fighters, so we were training by video. So it was just a full routine, and the days were flying by. So I'm really proud about how my family's handled it all, because we've attacked it and we've just, right, adjust it, not wish for things. What have I learned? I've learned that there are things that I've always, when you say, oh, we should do this, we should do that, and you just never get around to doing things that you take for granted. Like the amount of times my missus says, oh, so we just have a little drive to the coast and take the kids, go, oh, do you know what? I can't, I'd rather not. Let's just do this instead. Now I'm going to start saying, you know what? Yeah, let's do that. When we're supposed to be going away and you put it off because of work, and now you can't go away. And it's like, no, I'm going to start making time to have that bit of downtime. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's just the simple things for us, because we don't live a life where, it's an extravagant life or anything. So just the only thing that I've kind of like, I've missed the social interaction. I'm lucky because I get to go to the gym and I see my fighters, but that's 3 faces. I see them 3 faces. I'm back in my house. 3 faces back in my house. That's it. I've missed like the family side of things, my wife's family and things like that. So perhaps now, instead of when she goes up to see them on their own, I'm going to start going up and seeing them as well. Do you know what I mean? Just little things. To be fair, there's not a lot that's really changed for us, because we've coped with it really, really well, to be honest.
Yeah. And finally, are you looking forward to being ringside in front of a crowd? Imagine
that is the one thing that I have missed. Oh my God, just a crowd, just the fans, do you know what? I'm lucky because I've had fighters boxing, it's been behind closed doors. And even down to when I'm watching a fighter that I manage, so I'm not in the corner, so I'm sat in my seat, 2 meters away I've got Eddie Hearn. You're 2 meters away. So whereas in a normal show, in between rounds, you're talking, or while the fight's going off, you're having that conversation, talking about the fight.
Yeah.
You haven't even got that. And that kills it some more. And then when the bell goes for the end of the round, usually when you're in an arena and there's fans, you're looking around, you see interaction with fans, and it's like you thumbs up and people shouting or things like that. Yeah. The atmosphere, just the camaraderie with the fans, and I've missed it. I've missed it loads. It's nothing. I'm lucky that I've had fighters out, but it's nothing like it should be. And it's same with watching football. You're watching football and there's no crowds. And I talk to footballers and they talk about when they score a goal and how it's, the buzzing and it's their teammate, but they miss that crowd, they miss that atmosphere. And it's just, I can't wait. I think it's going to be so great when we can have fans back.
Yeah, it's going to be really, truly exciting for everyone, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.